quality always wins in the long run. You can change a lot of things, but if you have quality, you're going to survive, and that's Earl May Seed and Nursery.
Iowa, a great place to bloom. A land where strong roots can lead to a bright future. Such is the story of the Earl May Seed and Nursery Company, where time-honored tradition and a special touch have led to a century of success. Now, let's take a look at 100 years of the Earl May Seed and Nursery Company. Let's start with the founding father. Earl May was born March 21st, 1888. A graduate of Normal College and the University of Nebraska Law School, he married Gertrude Welch of Shenandoah and went on to work for his father-in-law at the Mount Arbor Nurseries. And that's when the seed of a great idea was planted.
The one thing we had, and Earl May and the Earl May Seed Company are an example of that, is we had great entrepreneurs with big ideas. And big ideas are one thing, but we had people that could make them happen, like Earl May. And it is a part of the fabric of our life in Shenandoah.
Earl May started his company in 1919. Started it as a catalog business. I think he had a little bit of retail at that time. It was in like an old rumbling shack of some sort. And apparently his employees were a little upset, and so he had to move into a larger space because it was falling down.
In the beginning, Earl May sold everything from chickens, socks, tires, to farm seed for all the farmers, and mostly was through his catalog. Families in the long winters looked forward to getting the Earl May catalog so they could have something pretty to look at and plan their spring gardens. So they always looked forward to getting their catalogs in the wintertime.
With the seed and nursery business growing, Earl May was at it again. Good salespeople know how to spread the word, so Earl became a visionary in another business, radio. This new means of communication was catching on, so Earl built KMA Radio in Shenandoah, changing the town and the seed business.
Earl May would get so excited about a product during meetings that he would run to the microphone and advertise the product before he even had it in hand. So his employees had to be very careful what they were talking about in the meetings.
Earl May at one time, I think it was sometime in the late 1925, 6, 7, 8, was the radio broadcaster of the year nationwide. And it brought great recognition to Shenandoah. There wasn't a TV to be in front of, there wasn't a computer to be in front of, and the entertainment was the radio. So it became this incredibly close camaraderie, you might say, between those listeners and the radio station.
By 1930, both businesses were booming, and Earl May opened his first retail outlet outside of Shenandoah, as the Earl May Trading Post No. 2 sprouted in Lincoln, Nebraska. And once again, it was the start of something big.
He grew his catalog sales, and then he grew that into some retail stores that were only open in the springtime. And then later on, as the store quantity grew, they decided to run those stores also in year-round season, and that's kind of when the true Earl May Garden Center was born. And he continued to run the garden centers and the catalog throughout his lifetime.
No better salesman ever lived than Earl May, and he also had a big heart. And sometimes people think, to be successful in business, especially I think back in those days, you had to be kind of a hardened person. But in the worst of times, in the Depression, Earl May carried farmers for their seed corn. And that was before seed beans, obviously, but their alfalfa, and he carried those and didn't require any notes, just relied on the good faith of the people that he dealt with to pay him back when they could, if they could. Some couldn't. But I think that epitomized, what Earl May was. Again, a great entrepreneur, great businessman, but also a man with a great heart.
Earl May passed away in 1946, but his legacy and his company continued under the leadership of his brother, Ed May, son-in-law, J.D. Rankin, and Jim Shawm. Along the way, the Earl May Seed and Nursery Company became known for quality, beauty, and community.
Back in the day, the Jubilee was quite an event. People came from all around to come and see the performers at the auditorium back in those days, and it really made Shenandoah a place to be known. And then we had the show gardens for a long time, and there was a lot of people that would come in for that. In fact, you still hear people talking about that. It really brought people to town to see the plants and that kind of thing.
We would have tens of thousands of people in town, and you know, the Mayfair Theater is, you know, the backdrop here is that was a big part of that. But you got to remember that these were the toughest of times. You know, there was militancy in the farm economies back in those days, and this was the one thing. And I think KMA, Earl May, and the Earl May Seed Company always was that steadying influence in life, that they knew everything would be all right because that was still there.
As a little girl, I remember going down to the offices and seeing my grandfather, J.D. Rankin, who was working there, and visiting him. And then during the summers when we had the trial gardens, I remember running around there as a little girl and going and finding my grandfather, J.D. Rankin, who was there, and just loving the excitement and all the people and wearing the silly hats that they had for everyone, and hearing the stories. Everyone loved the American flag that was in petunias and such, so I do remember those days.
My unique story would be more on probably from what I remember from my grandfather. J.D. Rankin would have been the vice president in charge of the retail department. And I remember my grandfather, I would have been in high school working in the local store, and he, on Saturdays, would go down to the store, and he would be in the store working behind the counter. Wouldn't be running the cash register, but he'd be right there watching what happened, maybe once in a while doing a carry out for somebody. But you know, he just had his pulse on what was happening in the retail environment at that time, and that's kind of the one thing that I remember from my younger days.
As you can see, through the years, the Earl May Seed and Nursery Company adapted to an ever-changing world.
I congratulate all those family members that kept this company. You know, there are obviously many opportunities to sell. I mean, these were and are successful companies, and they chose to keep their roots here in Shenandoah.
In 1986, Ed May's sister, Frances Rankin, and her two daughters, Betty Jane and Diane, became the owners of the company. Then, in 1989, it was transferred to Betty Jane and her children, Gordon and Mindy, as the family tradition continued. While running the company for around 30 years, Betty Jane and Bill Shaw had a great impact, continuing the vision of Earl May. Among the highlights, the Shaws were instrumental in developing the modern-day garden centers, along with the updating of the product mix. These changes set the stage for the current owners, Gordon and Melinda, the great-grandchildren of Earl May.
I know one thing, he'd be very proud that his great-grandson and great-granddaughter are the owners of the company. He would love the fact that it was still in the family. That would be important to him. And my guess is the next thing he would do is he would head to the advertising department and try to figure out some ways that he could help make it even better than what it is, because again, he was the consummate salesman, just a 24-hour-a-day dynamo when it came to sales.
I think Earl May is beaming with pride to see that his granddaughter, who was 6 years old when he died, ran his company for 30 years, and now her two children, his great-grandchildren, are picking up the baton and carrying on. I think he's very happy.
I think Earl May would be really proud that this company is still in Shenandoah, Iowa. The home office is still in the building that he was first in. I think that would just tickle him that we're still in that building. And still being in Shenandoah, Iowa, being a 100-year-old company, that's fairly unique in today's world. A lot of people would have moved on to a more urbanized location. The thing that you see as the changes is when he first started his company, he was selling baby chicks and car tires and bib overalls along with garden products. And in today's world, we're still selling our core garden center products, our plants and trees and shrubs and garden seed and those kind of things. But we've diversified into some garden gifts, even a few fashion items, some patio furniture, so we're doing some of the same things that he was doing, but we've added even more.
From the dirt to the digital age, the business has changed from the ground up. Catalogs have given way to ordering online, and in some ways, social media is the new radio. But while some things change, some remain the same.
I think Earl May's number one value was he just wanted to treat his customers like he wanted to be treated. I mean, customer service was number one to him. You see that in a lot of his early catalogs. Anything that you've seen written about him, that was his thing. He really wanted to treat the customers well, and we continue that tradition today. Today, Earl May has 29 garden centers, and we're located in Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. And in the garden centers, one of the things that we focus on is that our products are grown to live and thrive in the Midwest. We don't buy a product just because it's a new hot thing if it won't live in the Midwest and it won't thrive in the Midwest, because we want our customers to be successful.
We want to continue being an industry leader in expert knowledge, so we always strive to give our customers the best answer to their questions for their lawn and garden care.
With family as a foundation, in 2019, the Earl May Seed and Nursery Company celebrates 100 years in business, honoring the past while looking forward to the future.
The future for Earl May I think, comes from the past. We still want to take care of our customers like they want to be taken care of. We want to offer them a great product for a fair price. We want to offer all the services that we can to them, whether it's planting a tree, planting a shrub, helping them with their landscape. We do container gardens for them. We've also diversified on our website where you can shop online and pick up at the store, and that's kind of the wave of the future, I think, is trying to make people's lives a little quicker, a little easier for some of the grab-and-go type products. I think Earl May's legacy is that it's still a family-owned company. It's still a family-run company. It's been a family-run company for a lot of years. A lot of different branches of the family have worked there, and we can hope to continue to be a family-run company with our children down the road.
Other than family farms, it's rare to have a business run and be operated for 100 years, let alone have it be family-owned for 100 years. So I think it's amazing that it's been going this long, and we're very proud of that.
Earl May was our Babe Ruth. He was bigger than life. He truly was. Earl May provided us our entertainment. Earl May provided us our jobs. Earl May provided a lot of people with credit when no one else would give them credit. And when I say he's the Babe Ruth of our community, that's exactly what he was. There are very few people that you ever really see or know that are bigger than life, but I think that's the best way to explain him. I think his legacy, there's obviously a lot of things associated with his legacy that are objective, like the businesses itself, 100 years of excellence. But I think his legacy to me should be an example to everybody. Earl May didn't start with anything other than an idea, and I think that he would love the idea of have a big idea, make it work, and make sure it works for more than just you, it works for your community. I think that's what Earl May would say.